Hi everyone, this is Real World Audio, and this is the single-ended triode build that everyone has been waiting for. So I'm going to show you how to build the Darling amplifiers, and now you will know why it took me so long to get you this information, because I have compiled 3 versions of the Darling amplifier build. And in this video, I'm going to briefly introduce the 3 versions so that you can choose which is the one that you are going to build or you want to build. So you can pick your difficulty level, you can pick your output and parts quality as well. And the next video, which is going to follow this video, is going to be on the building of one of these versions, and it's going to have the parts list for all of the parts that you need to build this amplifier. So just as a brief background for those of you who are just joining the team, so this is a single-ended triode amplifier, so both the input tube and power tube are triodes, and it's called the Darling amplifier because Bob Danielak was the one who created the Darling amplifier concept, which is essentially using a 6J4 tube as an input and driver tube at the same time, and using a 1626 as the power tube. And the next version was built by Jeremy Epstein, and his idea was to use the direct coupled version of this tube. So instead of a coupling capacitor, the power tube is directly coupled to the driver tube, and to increase the output power, he doubled up the power tubes. So he has double, I would say over a little more than double the power than the original Darling. And then Kyle Kuroda, he was my audio brother, my mentor, who showed me this amplifier project, and I heard his Darling amplifier, which was based on Jeremy Epstein, but with the much improved power supply that Kyle designed for it. And basically back in 2002, I believe that was the year, that's when I have built my Darling amplifier, and also 2 of my friends, the 3 of us, we built our Darlings, 3 of them, which were based on Kyle's Darling. So we basically used his schematics, and I came up with a layout for the parts. And now the current versions are based on my experience with my Darling amplifier, and I have a 20 years history of modifying my Darling amp, and now these versions are the conclusions of my experiences. And here we go. Without further ado, let's see them. So all 3 versions, the builds that I'm going to show to you, are with universal power transformers, so you can build it wherever you are, if your source is 120 volts or 240 volts, 50 hertz or 60 hertz, it's going to work. So if you build it, even if you move to a different country with different voltage, you can reconfigure your amplifier, you can take it anywhere in the world. All of the builds will be with equally high quality resistors and capacitors in the power supply and bypass capacitors, so there is zero compromise there. And don't let the simplicity of the projects fool you, or the relatively low parts cost. This is going to be very, very high quality. And for sound quality, what you can expect, they will all give you natural sound, unprocessed sound. So that is having more likeness to life. So if you like music instruments, I mean natural sounding music instruments, especially if you like instruments with a wooden body, then this will be really, any of these might be truly your ultimate amplifiers that you want if you don't need very loud volume and you have a moderate to small size room where you listen. If if your favorite is jazz music, and if you want to have ear-splitting volume saxophone, then these amplifiers will not do it for you unless you also have ultra efficient loudspeakers. With those, yes, even the baby darling will split your ears in half on your cherished saxophone. But if you are willing to let go of such pleasures, and you are, for example, you are a violinist, then I believe this amplifier might be something that will be your last stop in amplifiers. I'm not saying you cannot find a better one in the world, not by a long shot, but this is something that any of these amps can end your quest of a better amplifier, and they will let you focus on finding the right loudspeaker, finding better music sources. You can concentrate on your phono stage, on your record collection, whatever you want, but your quest for amplification does not go merry round in a hamster wheel. So the first version is the baby darling version, and this is basically an up-to-date version of the original Darling, Bob Danielak's Darling, which is the smallest size of all of them. The build difficulty level is basic, so this is the most easy to build, smallest amplifier, and costs the less of the three versions. And I have to warn you that also its power output and apparent loudness is also the lowest of them all. So I can recommend it to a small room, or if you want to listen to it in a near field listening situation. It's not for big rooms, not at all, unless you have very, very efficient loudspeakers. Even if you do not have efficient loudspeakers, I would recommend going at least 91 dB efficient loudspeakers and 8 ohm loudspeakers. You can forget 4 ohm speakers for this amplifier, but once you have speakers with reasonable sensitivity, you will be able to enjoy the sound of this amplifier. But to have the most out of it, you need a very efficient loudspeaker for that. And how loud exactly it can go, take the dB sensitivity or efficiency of your loudspeaker. Let's say it's rated at 95. Then knock out 1 or 2 dB from it, and that will be the peak volume you can get out of it. So if you have 95 dB efficient speakers, then about 93, 94 dB peak is what you are getting at 1 meter from this amp per channel, which I would say is still quite a bit. So you will find that it will play much louder than you will expect it to play, but I am giving you the warning about the limitation in volume for those of us or those of you who want loud, because there are some audiophiles who just truly blast their gear, and this is a warning for them. You are not going to hit 100 dB with this amp, but if you have normal world expectations, then yes, this amp will perform for you. And the difficulty level is not that bad, pretty easy. And I would say, which I did not put down here, is that the voltages inside this amplifier are below 300 volts. It's about 260 volts, and that's still quite a bit dangerous, but not nearly as bad as the third version will get. It has super low parts count. Basically, it's the simplest amplifier you can build. I can't really imagine going any lower with the parts count. Actually, you could, but then you would severely compromise sound quality. And this amplifier, although the simplicity is a little bit, I would say, not something straightforward, because it doesn't mean that it's junk or you are getting cheated or compromised. It's simple because it has a direct signal path, so you are not getting a signal processor. It's going to read out from your source whatever is there, and it's going to give you the naked truth. No, it will not do any kind of etching to the sound. It will not exaggerate. It will not lie for you, but you are going to get the naked truth. And if you are a beginner and you are thinking this as your first project, this is just really fantastic, because there's very few things to connect, few parts to count, and it's relatively safe. Okay, so that was our first version, and I'm going to show you the parts list for that version in the next video and the schematics in the video after. Now, introducing the second version, the Pure Darling. Okay, now the Pure Darling is basically the pimped out version of the Baby Darling. So this first one was the Baby Darling, and this is the amplifier for a first project, and also if you are on a budget. This is as much of a budget amplifier as it can get, but don't let the word budget trick you, because it's still a very high sound quality amplifier. And if you build this amp and you take it over to your friends or to your local audio club, then you will shock the people who listen to it, and be prepared that it will embarrass some amplifiers in the $10,000 category. So just because it seems to employ some very modest parts, including the output transformer is a very modest output transformer, but you will see, if you have like 10 buddies listening to it and comparing to really expensive stuff, you will have at least 3 or 4 of those buddies telling you that this tiny little amp smoked that very expensive piece of gear. And now the Pure Darling, this is basically the same amp as the Baby Darling, but it has a little higher level of difficulty to build. It's not going to be a small amplifier, it's going to be physically a big and heavy amplifier. It's going to have about the same power output as the Baby Darling, so do not expect higher volume levels, but it's going to play much bigger with a much fuller sound. This is the version that will even impress those guys who crave big several thousand watt solid state amps driving their current hungry loudspeakers. Of course, it will not impress them if you hook it up to those current hungry loudspeakers, but if you hook it up to a sensitive loudspeaker, then it will give you very shocking, very full sound with authority and extremely deep bass. And you can just really destroy belief systems of your audiophile friends if you will subject them to listening to this amplifier. This is also the most expensive version of this build. It will take you over $1,000 to build it, but this is the amp that will be in the Yamamoto, Shindo, and Thomas Meyer category. So I think many of you, my readers, want to do this build, the ultimate low power amplifier. And of course there's a bunch of ultimate amplifiers, but this could very well be the ultimate purist amplifier. So it means that keeping it as simple as possible, as short signal path as possible, yet using very high quality parts, keeping the noise level below vanishing, using partial choke input power supply, so and very high quality output transformers. So this is something that can be your ultimate amplifier, even if you are looking at any price class amplifiers that you can buy. And for that experience, you need 98 dB plus loudspeakers that will give you the top of sound quality that you can get today. If you have lower than that, let's say 92 dB only, that will still give you fantastic sound, but you will then still hear the limitation. For example, with 92 dB loudspeakers, you cannot play a symphonic orchestra at a live volume. With 98 dB plus loudspeaker, let's say looking at my Altex speakers that I have, with that, even with this amp, I can play a live level symphony orchestra event that you would experience, let's say, from the 5th row or so. So do not ditch it because the power is low. It just means that its low level signal capacity is beyond your dreams. Why? That would take us off course. So for now I'm not going to go into that. And there's this third version, I call it the electric darling, and this is really the modernized version of my current darling. I'm going to rebuild my darling into this version as well, and I will show how I do that. And the difficulty level for this project is intermediate, so this is the hardest to build of all. This is also going to be a big and heavy amplifier. It's going to give you 1.5 watts per channel, so this is the beefiest of them all. And if you want to gauge it to your loudspeakers, look at your speakers rating and add 2 dB to it. That's how loud it will go. So for example, if you have a 98 dB efficient loudspeakers, it will play at 100 dB per channel per meter level, and it gets surprisingly loud. So when I first heard this darling, my darling's cousin, which was Kyle Kuroda's darling, it was the exact same schematics, and we listened to them along with a number of these low power level build projects, and some of them were more than this, 2 watts, 2.5 watts, and this one played way louder than any of them. So I would say that this plays about as loud as a 2A3 amp will play, almost as loud. so something around the 45 plus category. And you can use it in medium rooms, so you are not confined to a small room anymore. But I have to add that for the baby darling and the second darling, the pure darling, you can use them for medium-sized rooms as well, but in that case you have to go like 97, 98 dB or higher sensitivity loudspeakers to get them to play loud, or I would say very loud, which also means your neighbors are going to call the cops loud. So for this one, this uses much higher voltages because this is a direct coupling version. The other two were capacitor coupled. So this one will have 400 volts as high voltage, and this is not for the beginners because if you touch that, that can kill you. So get your feet wet first with projects that use lower voltages. But unfortunately, this is also the one that's going to give you the most power and loudest level. So anyway, this is what I propose to everyone. And I have the parts list for the baby darling ready. And that's where we are going to follow with our next video. So for now, just stay tuned and please like and subscribe so others can like and subscribe. And let's build it.